Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about how to get his attention and reignite his passion for you. But this time, I'm going to be talking about a case study. And I think it just demonstrates all you'd need to know to get some good tips and hints as to how to resolve your relationship issue if that is something that you're dealing with right now. I think it's quite a common issue in relationships where you feel like your partner isn't really wanting to spend time with you and you feel as though he's pulling away and you don't know why. And I think this is a really great case study to talk about. A couple have given me their permission to share it, so let's get to it. So this particular couple a few years ago were at a crossroads, and they were married, and the husband felt very disconnected from his wife, and he was deeply consumed by his work. But here's the great bit. A 2-minute conversation changed his understanding of his wife, himself, and relationships, and prevented divorce. So this is a very, very powerful story. And it just led for them to one of their most memorable holiday vacations as well. That was like a rekindling and like a second honeymoon for them. So let's get into it. See, he, the husband, was the kind of guy who used to prioritize work over everything. He'd wake up early in the morning, immediately open his emails, and used to prioritize work all the time. And he'd then, once he'd started replying to emails, he'd shower and then get straight on to more work, until he was literally too tired and was falling asleep, and then it was just straight off to bed. And all he'd do in that period of time was occasionally interact with his wife and have the occasional date, just so his wife wouldn't complain too much. And the truth was, at that time, he didn't really want to spend too much time with his wife because he resented her for always wanting him to spend more time with her. So there was a bit of a catch-22 situation where she resented him for working so much. She wanted him to be more involved, more connected, more present. She wanted to feel loved, but he wanted her to be less needy, less demanding, less judgmental, and less unhappy with him. And basically, he said he just wanted to feel free in their relationship. And what we need to realize is that the masculine partner aches for freedom, whilst the feminine partner aches for love. And that's just how it is in the dynamics of a male-female heterosexual relationship. So he finds his freedom through purpose, while she finds love through connecting. And so let's get back to the story anyway. So this one time they were just packing after the retreat they'd led in Colombia had come to a close when the wife asked him about his plans for December. She had planned to travel to Costa Rica and asked him if he would join her. And he felt, in his heart, a sense of dread because he anticipated her frustration once she knew he had planned to fly back to Canada and he'd got a full agenda of clients and wanted to be on his own to finish writing his first book. And they'd been in this scenario so many times in their relationship. She desperately wanted him to be more loving, to plan more dates, to bring more passion, to create more happy memories. She wanted to feel adored and not just feel like she's just his roommate or business partner or a glorified maid or mother. She wanted to feel like a woman, worthy of desire, worthy of admiration, worthy of connection and intimacy. And all he wanted was to be left alone. And every time they had this conversation, he'd tell us something along the lines of, why don't you get a hobby, hang out with your friends, or focus on your own work, or if you can't be happy on your own, maybe you should sit with that and realize why you can't be happy with that. And if I don't work, we won't be able to finance, any of our shared dreams. And why do you get upset? I'm doing my best. Or it'd say something like, I'm just too busy right now for ... fill in the blanks. So you may be able to resonate with this being a scenario that you've either been in or are currently in a relationship. And the fill in the blank is what usually we as women feel we want and need from our partner. And best case scenario, he'd negotiate some half-assed date night to try and make up for it all. But her emotional world just crushed him, and his relationship with work crushed her. She felt neglected. He felt unsupported. So I'm just wondering, listeners, is any of this sounding familiar? Are you resonating with this being the case in your current relationship or previous relationships? If so, stay tuned. So back to the moment when they were packing from their retreat, and when she asked him about Costa Rica, he said, I don't have time right now. There's lots of work coming up, and I may be away for 2 or 3 months at least. Then he said he braced himself for the impact. They'd just wrapped up everything to do with their retreat. They'd run a well-being retreat. And at the time, their hearts were both in a tender and vulnerable state. And when she heard his response, she put the clothes away and stood right in front of him, looked into his eyes, hugged him, and teared up. And as she cried, she looked at him, then with the purest, calmest place of love, said, I understand you have to go, love. I know how important this is for you, and I really appreciate all the sacrifices you do for me, for others, and our family. I just feel so sad. I miss you so much already, and I love it when we're together, but I understand. Please let me know how I can support you. And his heart just broke in that instant, because for the first time in years, and of the relationship they'd been together, he felt that actually both of their worlds could coexist without attacking or invalidating each other. He actually at that moment felt seen, understood, and not judged. He felt truly supported, whereas before, in those sort of situations, his wife's pain had led to being angry, it led to her feeling frustrated and coming across as judgmental and condemning of his choices, which only served to push him further away. So she thought it was wrong when he worked so much, and he thought it was wrong she felt so much. And that would lead to them both getting angry about each other's experience before they became curious or compassionate enough to seek to understand it. And in this case, she went first. She allowed herself to touch her emotions and share them as a gift instead of a punishment. She allowed herself to understand and appreciate his choices, and to see a husband that works hard, is committed, and is responsible. And she owned her own pain without hiding it. She acknowledged and accepted his answer, even if it's not the one she wanted. And, he could have easily said no and not been forthcoming in that moment. But what he actually saw was the woman he loved most, crying tears of deep grief and feeling very intense emotions without making him feel responsible or blaming him for them. And so something interesting happened. Suddenly, out of his own desire, he started to think about how he could show up for her, thinking of ways he could actually be her hero, not because she demanded or expected it, not because she complained or nagged him into it, not out of obligation, not because she was angry or upset, but because he loved her so much, and it would please him to bring her more joy and aliveness. Her vulnerability during those 2 minutes was a gift for him. He was given a clear opening where he could lead their relationship into glory. And at the time, he didn't say a word. He just went back to Canada to call a full calendar worth of his clients to reschedule his appointments, and then booked himself a flight to Costa Rica. And for the first time in their relationship, he traveled without his laptop. He did no work whatsoever during those 10 days, zero. He just spent quality time with his wife. And he said it just felt like a second honeymoon. They'd wake up in the mornings and look into each other's eyes for extended periods of time. as they made love and then cuddled. And then he said one moment they once, when they was feeling thirsty, they just hopped onto a motorcycle that they'd rented. And he loved, feeling her arms wrapped around his chest as she rested her head against his back. And they'd stop up at a little boutique coffee shop where they'd grab a chia latte and almond croissants as they chatted about life and giggled and laughed and had fun. And they'd end up going surfing and collecting seashells and grab fresh coconut and drink it as they walked along the most heart-melting sunsets they'd ever seen. So this was quite a difference for him from his wake up, read emails, work, sleep routine that he'd previously done, and vastly different from their sort of like half-assed date nights. So what did it for him, do you think? Well, he felt free, and in that freedom, he chose to love her. When you give men that space to make their own decision and not feel they're letting you down by what response they might give, then this is what happens. And in that freedom, he chose to love her. And what most women are so afraid of is if they gave their man the choice, he wouldn't choose them. And this is just down to our own anxiety, shame, lack of self-worth, and insecurities that make us feel like we need to force him into doing or being the man we need him to be, or he won't do anything at all. It's more a case of, if I left my man to his own devices, I would not be cared for. And that's really not the case. But that's the sad reality most women in long-term relationships live in. So we settle for half-assed, half-involved, half-present kind of man or men. And that's so sad when I think about it, because I hear these stories of women in these situations so much, because a healthy masculine man must be able to feel free to do what he wants, when he wants, even if, he risks you not liking that. He wants to be able to know that you're not going to criticize him or complain or compare him to other guys because he's made those decisions. And that freedom comes with vulnerability, because, he could say no, and we have to be prepared that that might be the case. Or, he could decide to play another game. He could have chosen work instead, but women try to stifle that choice away so they don't have to face their own emotions. And you might think, well, what emotions? And it's those emotions that show that you're unhappy with any relationship issues that are cropping up, and that you're annoyed over having to be the one that brings them up, and you're frustrated over feeling that your man is not hearing you or acknowledging you or understanding you, and maybe even just trying to fix you or dismissing you, or anger about having to pick up his slack on top of having to have your own life, work and responsibilities to tend to. And quite often we feel that we have a child for a partner, or an emotionally unavailable distant adult, and then we end up feeling lonely, and nothing sucks more than that. But those 2 minutes with his wife were the 2 minutes that truly surprised him, because he wasn't actually the kind of guy to reschedule clients or move around work to create time for having fun and doing stuff with his wife. He's not the kind of guy to spur the moment, buy flights to Costa Rica on a whim, nor even the kind of guy who he said would, normally enjoy an almond croissant or a chia latte or picking shells from the beach. Yet he found himself acting in those ways with his wife, and it was ways which his wife had always dreamed he would. And it was all from his own initiative, and he was actually liking it, and he couldn't believe it. So what happened in those 2 minutes that made the difference? Well, it's that his wife relinquished control. Her vulnerability changed things. Vulnerability not from the energy of fear, lack, or worry, or doubt, or acting like a victim, being needy, clingy, and desperate, but vulnerability from a place of love, acceptance, faith, and trust. There is a difference, so let me repeat it. Her vulnerability changed things, but not vulnerability from a change of the energy of fear, lack, worry, doubt, acting like a victim, being needy, clingy and desperate, but vulnerability from a place of love, acceptance, faith and trust. I hope you understand that there is a distinction. And there is a well-known quote that says, to be understood, first you have to understand. And she actually understood that he energetically felt stressed and pressure, which made him feel trapped, and that unconsciously that's what made him want to pull away. And this is what his wife needed to learn, exactly what kind of communication and connection she had to be in to get what she wanted from the relationship and make him feel excited and like it was all his idea. And the truth is that ever since, every time that she's communicated from this place, he's not been able to say no. He's actually melted and he chooses her. So she was able to reignite the peace, the presence and the passion in their relationship. And all the while he took pride and smiled in excitement, thinking it was all his idea. How cool is that? So I'll just leave you with those final words to mull over around the power of vulnerability. And know that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group 2 Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.